Hello, and thanks for coming to listen about my ideas regarding how innate modular brain operators are the basis for religious cognition in general, and in particular, with respect to shamanism. I want to show that much of what is core to shamanism is related to these innate modular brain structures. I've elaborated on these ideas in an article here on the supernatural as innate cognitive operators in this book. And I've further examined it more specifically with respect to psychedelic entity experiences in this article, in which I contend that the evidence indicates that it's our evolved psychology and neurophenomenological relations that are responsible for the kinds of experiences that occur under psychedelics. This idea of the innate modular functions, innate modular operators, is the one that's gotten a lot of attention in terms of the notion that the fundamental aspects of our experience of the supernatural have to do with the way in which our innate structures of the brain function. Gardner presented this idea as innate intelligences, and the notion that many aspects of human thought have to do with these capacities that were acquired over the course of evolution and function in unconscious ways. Of course, one of those is the idea of a hyperactive entity detector, the idea that we're hyperprimed to perceive something out there, but we're also hyperprimed to see it in social terms and as having various kinds of thoughts and indications for what we should do. So this idea of Gardner's innate modules here, the interpersonal intelligence, the interpersonal intelligence, a bodily kinesthetic intelligence like mimesis, a spatial intelligence, all of these are thought to be capacities emerge naturally in the human being without learning or training. Language is a good example. You don't have to teach children language. You don't have to teach them about the innate qualities of animals. Children are born with an understanding of animal species differences and relationships among species that reflects long evolutionary adaptations. Music is another innate capacity, as is a logical, mathematical. When Gardner updated his intelligences in his recent book, he added spiritual intelligence and existential intelligence. And I think if you take each one of these innate modular capacities and map them onto shamanic experiences, you'll see a direct correspondence. Interpersonal intelligence is exhibited in attributing to spirits and souls the same mental capacities that we have. The interpersonal theory of mind is exhibited in spirit communication. They're trying to tell us something. Ritual enactment, imitative engagement is the bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Our spatial intelligence is reflected in the out-of-body experiences. The shaman's animal identities and powers are naturalistic intelligence, and so on. All of these basic features of shamanism can be understood as reflecting Gardner's innate modules. And what this leads us to is an understanding of spirits in general as reflective of the unconscious structures of the brain. When we attribute our mind and self properties to nature, that's animism. There's things out there that think and perceive and want us to do things. Of course, it's an extension of a deeper capacity of the hyperactive agency detection device. But in the case of human spirit experiences, it's hypersociality. These capacities for inferring the thoughts of others, inferring the intentions of others, internalizing their perspectives, internalizing their qualities, even internalizing the social roles of others, all innate capacities of humans, is what's being projected in the context of spirit beliefs. And in the context of shamanism, animal allies are basically incorporating the animal intelligence with the self modules. And in the case of totemism, we have the attribution to society of the animal properties of particular animals. So projecting the innate modules is a supernaturalization of social life that provided an enhanced self-awareness and an enhanced social identity, using animals as symbols that now enables us to solve social complexity problems by providing mechanisms for personal integration and social integration. We're the deer clan, we're the bear clan. In the case of the shamanic use of animal properties, such as guardian spirits, here a construct provides a hierarchical agent integration process. The different aspects of our own innate intelligences and personalities can all be modulated and controlled by one particular entity. So the idea of a social other with animal properties is fundamental to the formation of society through totemism, as Durkheim argued. In the case of shamanism, it's the human as animal, illustrated in these various paintings of art, in which the idea that we incorporate qualities of animals is core to understanding shamanic powers. Here, the natural system of meaning provided by animals is extended in the context of shamanic work to incorporate those animal properties as personal powers. We also have the whole issue of the evolution of consciousness and cognition through these innate modules. And I have proposed that shamanism was core to the evolution of human cognition, and it addresses a problem that was pointed out by Mithen in his Prehistory of the Mind. How is it that these separate modules get integrated if they're all supposed to function separately and apart from one another? And what he proposed was that language integrated these different modules. However, if we look at the evidence, it seems that these capacities were present long before modern language. And so how did these different innate modules for representation, the animal representation module, the self-recognition module, the social other modules that give community identity, the mind reading modules that allow us to infer others' intentionality, and capacities such as mimesis, how do these all get integrated together? Well, in my article on shamanism and cognitive evolution, I have proposed that these can be understood as capacities that emerge as a kind of side effect of the alteration of consciousness. By engaging in rituals that use music and dance and drumming, it produced certain kinds of altered states of consciousness that were characterized by highly integrative brain activity, particularly integrative brain processing that emerges from the lower levels of the brain. And so this is what enables shamanism to provide a more complex form of thought by integrating these different modular capacities together, a cross-modular integration or synesthesia that produces symbols. So in the context of the cognitive integration of humans through the integration of these modules, the visionary experiences constituted a presentational symbolism as opposed to representational. It's an image, it's an imagistic metaphor. And like other kinds of analogical thought, it provides a mechanism for representing one thing in terms of something that's better understood. The shamanistic practices are using animal metaphors to express personal powers. They're using body metaphors as an out-of-body experience to convey something about the nature of the understanding that we have. I think the most basic form of metaphoric expression that's used in shamanism, it's key to human cognitive evolution, is mimesis and modal metaphors, emotional metaphors. So in the context of shamanic evolution, it was these capacities to use mimesis to entrain the body with a multimodal capacity of expression that could coordinate with rhythm, with music, with drumming, that provided the basis for an archaic culture several million years ago, first expressed in imitation, in gestures, and pantomime, but eventually evolved into more complex capacities of mime, of gesture, imitation, music, song, and dance that allowed our ancestors to communicate through enactment. And this kind of behavior enabled an awareness because the mimesis and imitation provided shared information for the group that was the foundation for culture and customs and rituals, communicative gestures, and ultimately a group consciousness that enabled people to integrate within a group by sharing information through behavior. And shamanism exemplifies all these aspects of mimesis. The dancing and drumming and clapping, they are key aspects of mimesis, key aspects of shamanism, key aspects of a pre-verbal communication system. Shamans probably first enacted the supernatural through the enactment of their animal powers, the struggles against evil spirits, and ultimately use these as group enhancement technologies. We should think of this mimetic complex as a neural technology that uses our body kinesthetic intelligence as a basis for communicating and not just for communicating, but for emotionally transforming the group. Music and dancing have the capacity to evoke the endogenous opioids, which make us feel bonded to one another and feel good. They stimulate the neurotransmitter systems of dopamine and norepinephrine, enhancing our natural capacities for thought, particularly for extrapersonal thought, thinking about things distant from our bodies. Communal singing also engages the oxytocin of the body and enables us to enhance our social bonding with others. So basically, mimesis is the body as metaphor. The mimetic body is the basis for a sensory motor self, for our understanding of reality. The body becomes a generative system. We know through doing things, acting out in physical ways. Mimesis is also a kind of symbol. It's an active metaphor in which we're able to understand others through the behaviors that they display. And so it was the shaman's enactment of the struggles with the spirits, the imitation of animals, that became the first symbolism of the supernatural. And it also provided a variety of different kinds of auto-integration processes. By engaging in the mimetic body, we were able to bring up to consciousness these innate expressive capacities of our body. And the shaman then, by incorporating these different kinds of other beings, the animal spirits, engaged in a form of projection in which new concepts of the nature of humans were being expressed through ritual. Mimetic consciousness basically gives humans the capacity for empathy. Mimesis provides the basis for empathy through the reciprocal physiological and social experiences that are mediated by mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are these special neuron systems that function both for mediating our own intentions and behavior and for mediating our understanding of others' behavior. The mirror neurons fire when we engage in a particular intentional behavior, and the same neurons fire when we see somebody else engage in that same intentional behavior. So what you see and feel is what the other sees and feels, because our mirror neurons are both elicited by the same kinds of visual and behavioral information. So mimesis and mirror neurons provide insights into others' behavior, provides insight into their mindset, provides a basis for our identity with others. It enables us to sort of see the world the way others see the world, because our neurons fire for perception the same way that their neurons fire for the behavior we perceive. And so it provides a basis for social consciousness. We perceive the other within ourselves as the self, because it enables us to basically use our own neural systems to understand others' behavior. So the mimetic system is the basis for most emotional expression and our capacity to understand complex social behaviors, which still functions as a basic form of social consciousness today, well discussed in the sociological literature in terms of habitus. So this capacity of mimesis also elicits a variety of endogenous healing processes. First, music is one of the basic modular intelligences related to mimesis as part of this mimetic complex, and it evokes a variety of biologically determined emotional states, as well as endogenous responses to transform those emotional states. So music exemplifies mimesis as a highly effective mechanism for coordinating emotions in a group, for coordinating interpersonal relations, and it contributes to emotional bonding within the group by enhancing emotional synchrony. Just by getting people to behave the same way, you get them to feel more connected with one another. That's why military has everybody marching, in part because it puts us all on the same wavelength. Now, the soul flight is one aspect of this innate capacity to think with the body. We see this beginning with the notion of ecstasy, meaning in the Greek, to stand outside oneself. The self, the physical self, in a sense, separates from the interpersonal self in the visual field. So the self that we experience separates from the body, but it's still a body-based epistemology. It's an out-of-body experience, still refers to some sense of an etheric or spiritual body. And it has been characterized as a body-independent perspective derived from taking this perspective of others towards the self. So the others is a key social capacity. That is to say, we understand what others expect of us. We can internalize what others think, but we can take that same capacity and use it with respect to our own sense of self and body. And so we can engage these various innate modular structures independent of our physical body. So this leads us to understand the soul flight as a system of information that provides a body-independent visual reference. The soul flight is a visual system of knowledge, and it has the features of the proto-mind, which is to say the body, the self, and the mind are normally all integrated together in a fundamental understanding of reality. In the out-of-body experience, the effects of drumming or drugs or other processes on various integrative aspects of the brain, the temporal parietal junction in particular, disintegrates this normal integration. And so we have the extrapersonal capacities, an extension of body reference, but no longer limited to the body. We have enabled a perspective beyond the normal contextual limits on vision and cognition. We can project our thinking, our seeing to other places. So we have to understand these visions as a kind of pre-verbal symbolism, a presentational symbolism that exacts another innate capacity, the dream capacity, which is not strictly human. Other mammals have it too. It's a capacity used for analysis, synthesis, and planning. It's used to integrate memories, and it provides a very rich informational system represented in the concept that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So in summary, I would like to propose that what shamanism reflects in its many characteristics is basically the manifestation of innate intelligences, to project our mind and self-awareness into other things, to infer from others what they're thinking, to incorporate what others think about us, to be possessed by the ideas of others, and that the shamanic worlds and the shamanic identities as animals is a reflection of the integration of these various modular intelligences. In particular, I would emphasize the integration of the capacity to use animal intelligence as a personal reference. So the shaman becomes empowered because the shaman can take the concepts related to innate knowledge about animals and apply them to him or herself and incorporate those properties. If you think that doesn't work, spend the day acting like a mouse. See how you behave if you're constantly thinking of being like a mouse. And then spend the day acting like a lion. Do it with friends. Not everybody's going to like your lionness. So we're innately capable of acquiring information about these other kinds of entities and projecting them in our own behavior. And in the altered states of consciousness, we get rich symbolic information available to us because the altered states produce synesthesia. We ordinarily think of that as being a kind of synesthesia of thought and sound, or thoughts have vibrations, or vision and sound, colors have vibrations, or sound and colors, sounds have colors. But in the case of altered states, we're integrating diverse capacities of the brain into visual forms that are fundamentally symbols. Symbols are re-representations. When one modular capacity gets represented through another, we've created a symbol system. In the case of soul flight, we have both that symbol system linked with a dis-articulation of particular kinds of normally integrated processes. And so in the out-of-body experience, we still have our visual capacities, our other innate intelligences, but our ability to project them away from the body provides a very rich information capacity that allows us to plan, to project movement, to think about what we will do in the future, and in essence, engages this sort of de-centered cognitive capacity that allows us to think without being tied to the body. So I think when we look at all of these universal features of shamanism, we find that all of them ultimately are linked back to an understanding of these innate modular processes and how they can be incorporated into our thought. So I've elaborated upon these ideas in shamanism, and articles on most of these ideas are available at researchgate.net on my page.